come to the Philippines?
Are you concerned because you don't know what's gonna happen when you get here?
Well, today we're gonna tell you 10 things you need to know before coming to the Philippines.
Oh, ow, that really hurt actually.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Now, all the too serious to have fun travelers left. Now you're gonna get to know the real insight. We've actually been in the Philippines now for 7 months. And we figured before we leave the Philippines for a while, we'd help other travelers out and tell you 10 things you need to know before coming here.
We're gonna start off right when you arrive, or even before you arrive. You have to fill out a health declaration.
As of now, it's called e-travel. You can find it on the Philippines government website. You just have to download it, fill it out, passport information, vaccine info, kind of some COVID stuff just to know, just so the government has all your information. Then you get a QR code, and when you come into the airport, they will scan the QR code.
And you actually don't need a vaccination card to travel, but obviously it's gonna help. Also, the last requirement that you for sure need is an outbound flight. We've gone to a lot of countries where we've seen that as a thing, and we never were actually required to show it, but in the Philippines we have been consistently. Like 75% of the time we've arrived back in this country, we have needed the return flight.
If you don't have a flight leaving the Philippines, we've seen from other vloggers that they will make you buy one, and it will not be cheap.
And it might not line up how you want it, so make sure you plan that beforehand.
All right, the next thing we want to talk about is leaving the airport.
You know, say this is you. You just flew in on your airplane, you get off, it's been a long stressful journey here. You're like, let me just find some transportation to get out of the airport. Simple enough, right?
It's not going to be that easy in the Philippines. Unfortunately, the way things are set up, there are some shuttle buses that have insanely long lines, but a lot of the taxis from the airport, if not most of the taxis at the airports, are going to scam the nuts off you. Your best option is to book a Grab. You can get them pretty easily from the airport. Only a couple times has it been difficult to get it from the airport. It will be ridiculously more expensive than it should be, like triple the price of what a taxi actually should be, but it's your only option.
Also with that, you'll need Wi-Fi for that, but they do have like a stand there that they can book it for you, so we suggest don't get a SIM at the airport. They're also a scam, obviously. You can get them at 7-Elevens or any convenience store in the country.
It's like the difference between like $20 US and like 4.
Do not buy that at the airport.
No. And if depending on how long you're going to stay with the SIM card, you can buy different things on the app where you get the SIM cards, but a lot of times, at least for us, the apps that the companies use for the SIM cards don't let us purchase a load, so you have to go to 7-Eleven and buy the load.
The easiest way is they have like these little self-service kiosk machines, and you can just add load there. You'll just type in your number and then you go pay for it. That's the easiest way we've found. And then you'll have it, then you can use the app to purchase.
It might be a little confusing for people just showing up, but it's the best way. If you just want to pay $20, get it done with, they'll probably load it up for you there.
Oh yeah. So now you got everything sorted, you're out of the airport. What are things to know now?
The next thing we want to talk about is flight prices. Philippines is a country of many islands, and
you're gonna be flying to a lot of different places.
And a lot of times if you're coming here, you didn't fully you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. Maybe I'm gonna just go to the Philippines, I'm gonna be there for a month or something, use my whole visa. I'll just buy the tickets when I get there. Domestic flight ticket prices are sporadic. You'll look one day, flight from Manila to Cebu will be 20 bucks. You'll look the next day, it's 55 bucks. It's really all over the place. It can change from day to day. It can go so low, you're like, wow, this is like European cheap. And then it can go high where it's like US city to city prices where you're like, what the heck? How do I even? It's a little confusing, and you gotta be spontaneous. And if you see a cheap flight, you're like, okay.
The best tip I would give for that is if it's around $20 to $30 one way,
take it.
$50 to $60 round trip, and you know you're gonna go there, just take it when you see it, because that's about the best price you can get. It could go lower, but it's not worth risking it.
And it might end up being cheaper to fly from Manila to a place and then back to Manila or to Cebu than to fly from that place to another city.
Cebu and Manila are hubs to use.
Yep.
And then also for intra-city transportation, you might also be using different forms of transport like ferries and buses. The biggest thing we can tell you about these, you're not going to find much information online. You might find out where they are, but you won't find anything about times when they'll leave. So always plan with like a 2-hour buffer on top of the duration of however long the bus is going to be or the ferry, because sometimes they leave consistently just randomly at random times. Doesn't matter if they're full or not. Sometimes, like in Boracay, our ferry didn't leave until it was full and we had to wait an hour.
2 hours.
2 hours for that thing to leave. Anything that isn't a flight is not going to have a set time, unless if it's a very, very popular route.
It's not the easiest to find the information online either. You can find different websites that say different things, different schedules. Facebook is usually your best option to find if the company has an official site.
And then also just asking locals. You'll get a detailed plan from the local of like what exactly you have to do, but you might have to ask more people because it'll be very easy to forget exactly all the steps. So if you want to get around that way, that also works.
And if you're just hopping around Manila, another thing you should know is about the MRT. Traffic in Manila is one of the worst in the world. You see a thing that's 2 kilometers down the road and you're like, oh, that's an easy taxi ride. It's not. It could take you 45 minutes easily if traffic is bad.
Back in Minnesota, if you see something that's 60 miles away, it takes 60 minutes to drive there. If you see something that's 60 miles away in the Philippines, oh my gosh, that'll take you all day.
We once took a bus through Manila and the traffic was pretty bad. The bus was free. So we were like, oh, let's just take the bus. That will get us closer to where we're going. With the traffic, it was 17 kilometers, I believe, the drive only. It took us 3 hours. So our tip to you, always take the MRT. If you're in the vicinity of the MRT will be sometimes twice as fast than driving down EDSA.
The downtown lines can be a little bit packed, but don't let that deter you. It's so much easier.
Squeeze your booty in there.
Just to explain it very briefly, because it can be slightly confusing, they have some self-service machines at some of them, but usually they don't work. So you just have to go up to the counter and tell them which station. So look on Google Maps what station you're going to beforehand. They'll give you the ticket. You can just go. Not too confusing, but
it's super cheap. If you go across the entire MRT3 line, it's only 28 pesos.
It's like 60 cents.
Nothing.
And if you're also in Manila, you're gonna notice that there is a lot of dang malls in this country.
How many malls?
I don't even know how many. There is so many. Some of the biggest in the world, the biggest in the world, depending on how you define it. You're gonna see them everywhere. Gonna be an easy go-to if you ever need anything. It's gonna be there. But just know that the prices for food, especially there, are gonna be more expensive than any restaurant you can just find on the street.
When going to a mall, you at least know some things. It's gonna be clean, and it's gonna be air conditioned, and it's gonna be safe because they got guards all over the place. So you're paying the extra premium for not having to eat on the street or in a place that's not air conditioned or something like that. So there is benefits to the extra price.
We just focus on the food because that's all we do ever is just eat food when we go to countries, but also the prices for clothing and stuff like that, any essentials you're gonna need, like department store stuff, is way more expensive. You can get shirts for like 50 to 100 pesos if you go to a market.
A Black Ops 2 shirt?
Yeah!
Designer brands and stuff like that, nicer brands are gonna be in the malls. Another thing that you should know before coming to the Philippines is that you're gonna get by if you speak English, especially if you're staying in touristy areas and around Manila. Pretty much everybody here speaks at least decent English, enough to communicate, figure out what you're gonna do, where you need to go. It's pretty easy.
And this will get slightly more challenging as you go away from those touristy areas, but it's still surprising how well people can speak English all throughout the country. But again, it doesn't hurt to know a few of the Tagalog words.
Salamat po!
Kamusta ka?
Sige sige!
Mahal kita!
Bangin! Our next thing you need to know is you should know or look up the prices beforehand, at least for like smaller transportation. We're talking tricycles, we're talking taxis, stuff like that. I mean, the MRT does not go all across the city, unfortunately. So if you're going somewhere like BGC or into Makati from the MRT, you might have to jump on a taxi or a tricycle. Know your prices. Haggle. If you need to like look up some videos or online how much like distance should be. A lot of times if it's like 5-minute tricycle ride, at least for us as foreigners, it's like 50.
It should apparently be like 20 or 30, but I don't think we can get that possibly. So you will be able to haggle for anything. They'll straight up slap you with a 150, 3 times the price it should be. You just stick to what you want. Don't be afraid to get into a taxi. They say a bad price or something like that. Don't be afraid to get out, find a new one. Someone will be honest. And in Manila, if you can find someone that uses the meter on the taxis,
always take it.
There are people that do. Always take it. You can always ask them. If they don't, see what price they say and then negotiate. Taxis are going to be about double a tricycle.
It gets more difficult depending on where you are in the metro and in the country. Places like Iloilo, Baguio, they're known to be like, oh no, we don't don't scam people here.
They always use the meter.
But when you go, even Quezon City has been pretty good. It seems like the later at night you get, the more likely we are to get scammed as foreigners. But like if you just go a normal day, you can usually get the meter. You go downtown Manila by the more touristy areas, BGC, maybe even Makati. We haven't never gotten a taxi in Makati. They are going to scam you. They're going to try at least. So get out, find somebody that will use the frackin' meter.
When you're out trying to find someone that uses the meter, don't ask them how much, ask them meter first.
Meter?
And then if they say no, you can either look for another taxi, or if they give you an okay price, then take it. But usually they won't give you an okay price if they're not genuine enough to give you the meter.
And you'll be surprised. You look on Grab. Grab is just kind of a scam in general here for some reason. I mean, other countries, it's been
so cheap.
Super cheap. But here, it's always, like I said about the airport, 3 times the price as the taxi. So you'll get a Grab, and then you'll be like, oh, wait, Grab's 300. Okay, let's go see if we can get cheaper than this for a taxi.
And then the first price we get quoted is cheaper. And we're like,
oh. So we went to Cubao, which is not too far from us. It's like a 10-minute drive. And Grab said 300. And I was like, okay, we can get something cheaper than that. We went to the first taxi. He was like 200. We're like, hey, that's cheaper. We went, and then we get a taxi back from Cubao. It's 150, and then we get a taxi back the next day to Cubao again. It's like 90.
Each time it's different. You'll consistently be shocked that you got scammed the first time because it's so much cheaper the next time. That's just gonna happen.
The meter is significantly cheaper every single time. So if they don't want to give it to you, it's because they're trying to scam you.
Also, you gotta watch out. There's some fake meters out there, but those are usually gonna be downtown Manila, around the airport.
Yep, I got a fake meter before, and it ended up being, I think, 1,400, 1,500
a taxi
pesos.
Should never be that much unless if you're a full day paying them.
I had to resort to tactics that no one should have to use in a taxi.
Also, this video has been themed sort of around a like short-term traveler here, not like a weekend traveler, but more like a couple weeks to a month traveler. And with that, something we frequently do in other countries is order Food Panda food, because sometimes you just don't want to go out to a restaurant and you just want to order some food in.
And Food Panda is a delivery service.
Yes. Similar to Uber Eats if you're in the US.
Glovo if you're from Georgia.
Glovo or
Bolt.
Zomato. Similar to those. It's very easy to use, but it's more expensive.
Once again.
Considerably more expensive for a certain restaurant.
For example, Panda Express is actually pretty good in the Philippines.
Surprisingly.
Every single menu item is 100 pesos or $2 more expensive on Food Panda than it is at the actual store. And the SM North store specifically has been jacking up those prices like every couple months. Just remember that, it's always more money. Those little increases, you're like, $2 more. That will add up if you order a lot of food like us.
Yeah, and also there is like a little delivery fee, but it's not too much. And it also seems like you're not expected to tip people, because anytime I give someone a tip, even if it's like less than $1, they're always very surprised and very thankful. So it doesn't seem like you're expected to tip, but at the same time, there's no reason not to. So that's just something to factor in. Also, there's no expectation to tip when you are in any restaurants or anything like that.
Speaking of food and restaurants, another thing that you need to know about the Philippines is a lot of times, this happens a surprising amount, there will be items on the menu that are not available.
It'll be some of their best sellers according to their menu. They'll have like a little thumbs up next to them.
A lot of times desserts.
Yes, desserts especially. And you'll try and order it and they're like, oh, it's not available. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll get this instead. Oh, that's not available too. Oh, I'll get this instead. And then they're like, okay. And then you continue ordering, you order your dessert or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's not available. Like, there's been multiple times where we order at a restaurant and 4 times we tried ordering things and they weren't available.
And then you start thinking, why am I here? Just to suffer?
It's more prevalent in the provinces for sure too.
Even Cebu, which is the like second biggest city or biggest metropolis area, happened a lot more there than it happens in Manila.
It seemed like they were more used to it because they would slap not available stickers just on the menu.
If you're going to a restaurant for a specific thing, even if it's their most famous thing, even if you're going to lechon place, they might not have lechon.
So if you want to, just ask before you even sit down. You guys got the lechon, right?
Also, another thing to add about the restaurants is a lot of times, if it says it closes at 10, they will start closing up shop and stop cooking specific items at 9.
Yeah.
So be ready for that.
The last thing is a tip just for any traveler. You gotta always pay attention to your surroundings. So we're just saying it specifically on this video because the Philippines has a reputation somewhat of, at least for Asia, being a bit dangerous. And personally, for us, it hasn't been too bad, you always gotta pay attention. One of the first weeks here, I got my phone pickpocketed. If I was paying attention a little more, I guess it wouldn't have gotten pickpocketed.
Grabbed his wrist and just broke it.
And that wasn't even like it was that was a skilled pickpocket. That was in my front pocket. It wasn't like a back pocket or anything like that. It was good. Just like being aware of our surroundings. There's only been like a few other instances where I feel like we feel unsafe, and like both of the times we felt pretty quickly that someone was approaching us in a bad manner, being followed or something. We just kept like looking at them, and then they'd like back off, or we'd turn a different way, they'd back off. Maybe if we weren't paying attention, we could have something else could have happened. So
trust your gut. Even in the nice neighborhoods, bad things happen.
Even in the bad neighborhoods, good things happen.
A foreigner was shot in Makati, which is supposed to be one of the nicer areas of the metro, so you never know where bad things are going to happen. Stay aware, trust your gut, all that stuff.
The trust your gut thing is just huge. Just make sure if you're walking down a place and something just doesn't feel right, it's probably for a reason.
If like your taxi driver or tricycle driver is acting shady, like you thought, this person's probably gonna scam me, right? Mm-hmm. Just get out.
You can usually tell pretty quick just by the character or how they approach us. If they're hounding for you specifically because you're a tourist, trust the gut.
Trust the gut. This is stuff that applies to pretty much every other country in the world. Just be safe. You know, if there's an area that is known not to be that nice, don't go there at night. Don't go there at times where it's not just crowded with people. Just be smart, be safe, just like anywhere else. That's our list.
Now that your brain is filled with so much info and you're prepared to go to the Philippines,
subscribe!
Yeah!
So you can see all the things we did on this channel, and you can go do them too.
That's a great way to gain info on possible destinations you might want to go.
Yeah.
Check out our video.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully it helped. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.